Hey everyone, it's Sevy. Welcome to my guide on how to beat floor 11 and 12 of the 4.6 cycle. Most of the enemies here have appeared in previous cycles, but that doesn't mean they won't be any less annoying than previously, like these operatives and lectors especially. Anyway, as usual, this video discusses strategies and tips to help you beat the chambers more easily. Let me just flash some very general reminders before you tackle Spiral Abyss, which you can pause to take a quick read. This Abyss Blessing reduces opponents' elemental and physical resistances by 30% for 4 seconds when a character triggers a pyro-related reaction, so bringing pyro units here is definitely a huge advantage. Starting with floor 11's general tips, there is going to be a defend the monolith chamber, so brace yourself for that. Anyway, the first half has a couple of cryo-shielding enemies, so having pyro or electro units to counter their shields is recommended. On this half, I'm using a Chevreuse overload team. Then for the second half, I would recommend a strong grouper like Sucrose, Kazaha, or Venti if you have one of them. The enemies here are a bit harder to aggro for the monolith chamber, and in the other chambers, they have elemental auras and shields such that swirling them will be quite helpful. You can also opt for an archer to shoot down the Ruin Hunter and Skydrakes in the last chamber, but I didn't find it necessary. Here I used a Sucrose national team. Starting with the monolith, I stand slightly to the side of the monolith, which causes the Metatroll to target me and rush towards me past the monolith. From here, I used AoE attacks to kill the ones away from the monolith ASAP. You can take care of the melee hilly trolls after, since they aren't doing much to the monolith anyway. Every succeeding wave spawns in the same manner but rotates counterclockwise, so just repeat the process for each wave.
Wings of darkness! Boom, boom! Eyes on me! Midnight Phantasm!
On this second half, we start with a wave of shrooms. I try to get the attention of the Hydro one first, because otherwise it will direct its projectiles to the monolith. Once I've made it turn away from the monolith, I move towards the center where the other shrooms are gathering and lay down my AoE attacks to kill them ASAP. The Hydro shroom should slowly follow you from behind, but if it's left behind, just kill it right after. Then we have a trio of Eremites. They can be aggroed if you start attacking them, but I would prioritize the Day Thunder one first since his hits can be heavy and hard. If you have AoE attacks, then you can just let them gather around the monolith and kill them there, since you would hopefully still have a lot of HP on the monolith at this point.
Now you're testing my will.
On to the second chamber first half. The waves spawn in a counterclockwise direction, so you can move and push the enemies in that direction too. First, we get a wave of Nobushi. I approach them from the right and push them back towards where the next wave will be. The second wave has 3 Baptismal Bishops. They can get staggered and pushed easily, so I once again push them back. Watch out for their projectiles since those can drain energy. The third wave has 3 ruined monsters and they spawn in a line. Again, I start from one end of the line. Just be sure to watch out for the floor attack of the snake. They don't tend to go away from you, so AoE attacks will be quite effective on them. Lastly, we have 2 Geo Bishops. You can wait for them to jump on you and group themselves, and if they do that, be sure to dodge them, or start attacking them ASAP since they don't move around too much and aren't too difficult to kill anyway.
Incinerate!
For the next half, an Anemo character will help a lot to spread elements around and damage the enemies and their shields. The first wave has 4 slimes of different elements, and they're grouped close together, so just use AoE attacks and or swirl them together. Then there are Whopper Flowers that will teleport around but keep coming back to you. A crowd controller will once again help a lot in staggering them, but use AoE attacks while they're together and use counter elements to prevent them from charging their shields, or else they'll be much more annoying to deal with. Next are a wave of Spectres, and again they spawn close together, so AoE attacks will take care of them easily.
Get them! You're toast! Stand clear!
Then the last wave has Aberrants, which have a Pyro, Cryo, and Electro shield respectively, so swirling them will weaken those shields, or just use counter elements to get rid of the shields efficiently. Next, the third chamber starts with a wave of a Cryo Abyss Mage and Hilichurls all in a line. If you have an Anemo crowd controller, you can easily suck them all in or stagger them. Pyro will destroy the Cryo Mage's shield the fastest, followed by Electro. Then there's 3 Mitaturals at the opposite end, but just stay where the Cryo Mage was and they'll come charging towards you. Dodge their swing, then use your AoE attacks since they stick close together. Last are 2 Cryo Lawaturals. The main thing to focus on here is dodging and iframing their huge attacks, or at least having a shield strong enough to withstand them. Those are the most crucial to avoid, and if you can get through those and get through their Cryo shields with Pyro or Electro, then the fight is a pretty straightforward DPS check. On this last half, we start with 2 Abyss Rogues. Like usual, I start with one and push it backwards towards the other. The other one will fly at first, so just try to avoid its attacks and it should drop down near you once it's done. Then, we get a Ruin Hunter that you can either shoot down if you have an archer on the team, or just attack its base and try to kill it ASAP. Last are 2 Ruin Skydrakes. Be careful of their projectiles. You can also shoot these down if you brought an archer, but otherwise attacking their tails should be fine. If you have enough DPS, then killing them one by one shouldn't take too long.
Absorption test.
Moving on to floor 12. This floor's first half once again has a bunch of cryo enemies and shields, so bringing Pyro and or Electro will go a long way. We also have 3 Kenkis and Coppelias on this half, so unless you're confident in dodging and iframing, I strongly recommend a healer or shielder to make your runs more comfortable. Remember also that Coppelias has higher resistance to Anemo and Cryo, so consider that if you're bringing in Anemo or Cryo DPS. For the second half, I once again strongly recommend bringing a good Anemo grouper because the enemies here are harder to group and will take longer if you're unable to group them. The Electro Lectors will want you to bring either Pyro, Cryo, or Dendro to disable their Electro shields more easily. Then the last chamber has the Baptist that generates a Pyro, then Cryo, then Electro shield one after the other. So make sure to bring respective counter elements shown here. I'm using the same teams as before, Chevreuse Overload for the first half and Sucrose National for the second. For the opening, I run towards the left side first. This is because blue tries to dash attack you at the start if you're too close, which makes him move too far from the others. But if I go far enough to the left, that will cancel his dash attack, and instead he will stay near them so I can go back and deal AoE damage to all of them more conveniently. From there, it's a matter of damaging and dodging them. The blue Kenki generally just follows you, so you can focus more on trying to herd the Anemo Kenki towards the others, which generally tries to strafe around you when it's not attacking. Be careful of the Cryo Aura when the Cryo Floor is applied as well, as that will slow you down or potentially cause unwanted reactions and deal some damage to you over time. Kill them all simultaneously as quickly as possible and save your energy for the next chamber. The first wave is 2 Kairagi, and I just wait at my starting position so that they'll come to me and get edge baited for easier grouping. However, if you don't want to waste time waiting, you can just rush towards them immediately. And if you can crowd control or disable them anyway and kill them fast enough, that might also be faster for you. As always, kill them together so the other one doesn't regenerate its HP. Next is the Mirror Maiden and the Pyro Fatui Skirmishers. If you have crowd control abilities, try to disable the Pyro Fatui immediately so they don't jump backwards. And then you can kill them simultaneously, which generally just leaves the Mirror Maiden for you to focus on. If you can't crowd control them, I generally recommend prioritizing the 2 Pyro Fatui as they can hit hard if left alone. The The last wave are these two operatives, blue and green, which are the hardest of the bunch due to their tankiness and annoying tendencies to move around so much. If you have crowd control abilities, that would help a lot in trying to keep them together as much as possible. Green tends to stay in place while blue does a lot of dash attacks, so I try to stay close to green so the other naturally dashes towards us. Watch out for green's floor attacks as well, since they can stagger you easily. Also, these operatives have a lot of HP. Once they were down to red HP, I had some attempts where I would try to save my bursts and just kill them with skills, but it took really long due to their tankiness and went overall faster when I just started a new rotation.
Animal test 6308. Booba. Yeah, stand clear. Yeah. Rain outlines your fate. Let's light it up. Yeah, he's going in. Pardon me. I have.
Next is Coppelius. It's a familiar pattern with Coppelia, as one stays in place for you to focus on, while the other dances around and fires projectiles that you should try to dodge or shield against. Then they come back to regroup and restart the routine continuously. Coppelius periodically summons a cryo shield as well, which you can easily get rid of with a few pyro attacks or instantly with an Usia attack. If you manage to hit them with 3 Usia attacks when they're together, you can stun them for a period of time, which makes it easier to kill them. But this isn't really necessary, and just damaging them normally is fine. There's a lot of dodging involved here, both from the ranged attacks and the melee attacks. Be careful of cryo-related reactions like melt and freeze as well. If you have ranged attacks like I do, you can also attack from a distance for more safety.
Stop right there! You asked for it! By royal decree! Boom!
The first wave consists of 3 Fatui agents, which are grouped together upon summoning, so it's easy to crowd control and deal AoE damage to them. Just be careful of their spinning attacks, as they can stagger you a lot if you don't shield or dodge. Next wave are 2 Eremites. You can stay near the ranged one since the other will naturally charge towards you to deal melee attacks, which groups them together. They also summon their pets, which you can kill first to damage their owners and stun them, which also reduces their high resistances for an easier time. The most annoying is the third wave, which are 2 Electro Abyss Lectors. I group them up by going either to the edge of the left or right side of the map so that the farthest Lector will walk towards the other one. Once they're grouped up, you can more easily deal with them simultaneously. Alternatively, you can group them if you have an Animo unit, or just immediately go to one Lector and try to push them towards the other.
Teamwork is teamwork!
When they gain their electro armor, only applying counter elements can deal damage to it, which are Dendro, Pyro, or Cryo. Another annoying aspect is that they can siphon your energy with their attacks, which can be a huge problem if your characters are reliant on their bursts to apply their elements. Even with a shield, you'll still get drained. So be wary of dodging them, also to save your energy for the next chamber. Using Bennett here is a huge help, since he can more easily spam his skill while his burst is active for fast pyro application. And if you group them up before, that's even better. Now for the last chamber. The first wave is just 2 Cryo Gunners, which is a pretty straightforward fight. Just try to push or group them together for AoE damage, and if they get their Cryo Shields up, Pyro and Electro will help destroy them quickly. The next wave is an Eremite and 2 Nobushi. I recommend focusing on the Eremite first, and the 2 will just naturally charge towards you and cause them to group up anyway.
Drop your weapons! You asked for it! Power the boom!
The third wave are 2 melee mechs, so just pick one and try to push or group them up.
Shadow Raven! Incinerate!
The last wave is a construction mech and 2 dogs. Focus on the construction mech, and the 2 dogs should easily be killed by collateral damage anyway. Be careful of its spinning attack as well, which can stagger you a lot.
Wings of Dark!
Finally, the Baptist is back with its Pyro Cryo Electro armor mechanics. So this is mostly a matter of just using counter elements to destroy its armor, which causes it to get stunned and give you a window to deal damage. In the first 2 armor breaks, it gets stunned for about 5 seconds. The biggest window to deal a lot of damage is after breaking the Cryo and Electro armor, since it gets stunned for about 14 seconds. So you can set up your rotation during its earlier phases so that your damage dealing window will mostly fall at the 2nd and or 3rd stun period. It also seems to teleport in the latter phase, so be mindful of repositioning as needed.
Absorption test. Yeah, stand clear.
Your salvation.
After breaking these 3 armors, the cycle repeats, so just repeat your rotations as well until it's dead. As long as you have good application sources of its counter elements, this should be a relatively smooth fight. And that's it for this Cycle's Abyss guide. Comment down below what you think of the enemies in this Abyss cycle and what teams you use to take them down. If this video helped you out, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I will see you all soon. Take care!